Start a small business. No need to work 40, 50 hours a week, slaving your life away. Obtain financial freedom, be your own boss, and create your own destiny. Moguls are the new superstars. The path to country club membership and a leased Mercedes-Benz is paved in gold as you take your business trips to Orlando or Vegas. Validation from your in-laws is just an LLC and Facebook business page away. At least, that's what they tell you anyways. Through social media, websites, and targeted ads, you're sold an image. Small business owners seem to walk on water. You'd think you're the last person on earth working a regular job with a regular boss. But there's trouble in paradise, and its name is in over your head. People start looking to start their own business, don't know what they don't know. But that's why we started our Small Business Confidential podcast, to share what we've learned from years of experience. There's not a lot of people in on this, so remember, dear podcast listeners, you heard it here first, off the record, on the QT, and very hush-hush.
All right, hey guys, it's Brook here with Amari. Mike is in the middle of something, so we wanted to just get something out there. You know, just the two of us shooting the shit, water cooler talk, two young guys. Amari, how's your Thursday?
It's good. You know, we talk about that feeling when you can finally cross something off your list that's been lingering there forever, so...
That's a top 10 feeling.
No, seriously, especially if it's like back to back, boom, done, boom, done. I'm sending emails out. So today was a very productive Thursday. It's kind of the day I wanted to have yesterday, but since yesterday was kind of a little hectic with the scheduling and stuff coming out of left field, I'm having my Wednesday today. So it's good. What about you?
It's good, yeah. It's navigating having a newborn at home with daycare, two parents who work, snowy weather. It's been, I'm learning something new every day. And I think one thing I wanted to touch on was really not prioritizing your time, but maximizing your time. Mm-hmm. I think one thing is, I don't know if there's anyone out there who's got a newborn at home, knows the feeling, but I find that since I've had my son, I've just become ruthless about, like, not necessarily sticking to a schedule. I mean, sticking to a schedule and a routine with a newborn is, Amari, when you have a kid, that's the number one thing.
Yeah.
Is routine, habits, and you are just an assassin about it.
Right.
When nap time is, when they get fed, but more so with the parents and being, you know, having a full-time job, I've just realized the importance of being really selfish and strict with your time and what you have to get done.
Right.
And I think that's a good point, or something that you brought up that I need to be more mindful of is no one really cares what my schedule is like.
Right.
Things come out of left field.
Yeah.
You get dumped on with a foot of snow, employees calling off, equipment not working.
Right.
Shit's going to happen.
Right.
And you just have to learn to adapt and adjust, but still be an assassin about like getting as much done as you possibly can.
Right.
I think one thing that people have a tendency to do is, like, you see this a lot with other contractors, is especially if it's a contractor working by themselves, they become a perfectionist. Perfection leads to wasting time. Wasting time leads to not making money.
Right.
So I think to kind of get to the point where I'm at, it's like perfect is the enemy of good.
Right.
Right. So if you're in that mode of like, I got to get shit done. I'm at work now. This is what I need to get done. These are my 4 or 5 things that are left. I'm not going to rush it and do a shitty job.
Right.
But I still need to keep moving the ball forward.
Yeah.
And trying to make progress.
Right. Yeah, I think about a podcast we had when it was just me and you a few weeks ago, and we were talking about goal setting and stuff that seems like it's going to the moon, but it's really not. It seems like it's the moon. You're going to the moon because you haven't really started it, you know, in a sense, or you feel so far away from it. But once you start moving things forward, getting some concrete steps forward, you realize it's not really the moon. That's just like driving to Chicago or whatever, like we always talk about here.
World.
Yeah, you know, it's not as big of a deal as we make it mentally once you actually start getting into it and making some progress in it. And, you know, you have some conversations if you need help, you know, with your trusted people who've done it longer than you, and you start to make some progress. You're like, I can do this. You know, it's like we always talk about working out. You got to have like a timer before every podcast. We bring that up. But it's like once you start getting into the flow, you're like, I could do this. I could even do a little more than this. I can, you know, I started just doing like some basic weights, some cardio, but now it's like, I could do this too. I could try this, like hit legs. I could, you know, do more like abdomen stuff. Like you start to get a feel for it. And I kind of got into that zone today, which you don't always get into. Some days are just a little more frustrating than others. But
Yeah.
when you get into that flow state, those pathways start opening to seeing more solutions. I want to feel this again.
Yeah.
You know, so
I think too, it's like I cold plunge in the morning and at night.
mhm.
I cold plunge not because it's gonna, you know, for my cardiovascular health. I mean, that's just a bonus. I
Right.
cold plunge because I want the quickest way to wake up from going on 5-6 hours of sleep.
Right.
30 seconds in, when it's 13 degrees outside, trust me, you'll wake up after that. The
Right.
second reason why I do it is because it sets the tone for my day.
Right.
That's why they suggest the first thing you do in the morning is make your bed.
Right.
Making your bed sets the tone of you're accomplishing something physical that you can see a result, and that'll set the tone for, well, okay, if I can cold plunge in the morning for 30 seconds, if I make my bed, you're already 2 for 2
Right.
versus waking up late, snoozing through,
Right.
grabbing a donut and a hot chocolate at Starbucks.
Right.
I mean, if that is successful for you, then keep doing that. I know for me, like that won't work.
Right.
But it's also, I think one thing too, and you said this, and I've been a lot more mindful of it just because I've been reading a book by this guy. I'm sure people may have heard of him. His name's Scott Galloway. You've probably seen him on CNN. He's got a tremendous podcast. He's a professor at NYU. But he said something recently that I read, and he said, you know, those feelings of like you said, like this seems impossible. I'm never going to get this done. That's temporary.
Right.
And the one thing that I'm glad he mentioned was, and the flip side is when shit's going great, that's temporary.
Right. Yeah.
So on those days where you feel like this project or assignment is going nowhere, this house isn't selling, the contractor's too slow, that's temporary. As long as you're being proactive and you're moving forward,
Right.
the result will, like you will accomplish it, might not be as fast and quick as you expect.
Right.
And on the flip side, when things are going great and you're selling and you're, you know, selling jobs and, you know, people are getting back to you and your employees are getting stuff done, that's temporary too.
Right.
So it's kind of just recognizing that those feelings of, you know, self-doubt or the world is falling apart, the sky's falling, it's not.
Right.
And on the flip side, when you're riding sky high, you're going to fall.
Right.
As long as you're aware of that,
Yeah.
you know, just don't be oblivious
Right.
to that. And the same thing, like with me, like with my son, when he's screaming at night, that's temporary.
Right.
And on the days like last night when he was just clapping and laughing, and I remember I was like, I need to appreciate this right now. And
Right.
people were texting me and calling me, and I was like, me talking to a friend on the phone is less important than just being there with my son.
Right.
And sure enough, he was great for an hour, and then by 7:15, it was like balls to the wall.
Right.
peeing on me, screaming, grabbing my glasses. And I'm just like,
Right. We were just good.
I was just good.
Yeah, that's a little bit of my day was kind of like, it was when I was able to just kind of lock in by myself. It was like, okay, I'm knocking stuff out. I'm feeling good, getting stuff done, got my coffee. And then someone will pull me into some other situation. Not as good of a feeling, not as good of a vibe, trying to troubleshoot managerial things, that a lot of it is dealing with people rather than, I guess, like concrete issues. Sending an email, fixing a tech issue or whatever. It's like, oh, there's personalities and, different things that are less kind of objective. And that's something that has been a constant learning lesson and a big reminder of that, like, these factors in your life, they don't care, that you got to do this other stuff or this or that. It's like, this is a problem as well. And like you said, it's temporary, but right now I've got to deal with it. So it just speaks to how important it is to stay present, and then also being able to be present, but zoom out into the bigger picture. So.
Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back.
If you enjoy listening to our Small Business Confidential podcast, we're sure you'll enjoy our first podcast, The Cleveland Real Estate Investor. We give outside investors an inside look into the real estate market in Cleveland. Cleveland has been on the rise, and investors from all over see those cheap prices and salivate. Our job is to educate those investors and steer them in the right direction with several years of experience of how to do it right and many examples of how to do it wrong. Find the Cleveland Real Estate Investor podcast on any app you listen to your podcast today.
I think the sign of a really good manager or business owner is you need to be good at communication.
Right.
You need to be clear, to the point, and so that you can explain it to like a 10-year-old.
Right.
There's this great movie called Margin Call, which I encourage you to see. It's about this hedge fund in New York on the eve of like the 2008 financial crisis. And this guy basically realizes that the economy's on the brink of collapse. Right. How does he get to that point? It's just endless numbers and calculations and risk factors, and they need to call an emergency board meeting. Everyone comes down to the conference room like we're in now, and like head CEO flies in from his helicopter, probably from like the Hamptons or something. And he sits at the head of the table, and I always remember this scene. He's asking his people who he's paid to like explain what's going on, and they immediately go into analytical numbers and this and that and this and that.
Right.
He doesn't know that stuff. And he says, I need you to explain this to me like I'm 10.
Right.
The reason I get paid the money I do is because I am good at communicating and figuring out what to do next.
Right.
And to me, it's like, that's what makes a good entrepreneur,
right,
CEO, is you need to be able to communicate,
right,
know what your limits are. And I mean, at the end of the day, like a problem comes down to, probably a pretty fundamental issue.
Right.
You don't need the jargon of, well,
it's all noise.
It's all noise. It's like, what's the problem? The problem is this,
right.
So
yeah,
I don't know how we got to that point, but I think when you're facing a problem here at work, if someone's coming up to you, I think, and I can think of a couple people who are very reactive.
Yeah.
Where I think sometimes the approach of like taking a step back,
right,
and just kind of being silent and really kind of understanding what the problem is,
right,
and then act on it,
right,
yeah, and then communicate that in a very clear cut way,
right.
Like I think that happened this morning where I came in and there was some like confusion or like question. I'm like, okay, should I report his time to this person? This
Right.
job is here. And I was kind of in that mode of like, I don't have time to talk about this
Right.
anymore. I'm understanding what the problem is. Here's the solution.
Right.
Explain it clearly.
Right.
And I could tell I explained it clearly because
It all stopped.
It's like, yep,
Right.
okay.
Right.
You know, is every problem like that? No. But
Right.
that was a good kind of like,
Yeah.
this is working. I'm going to keep trying this method.
I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like most problems will be that simple, but people overcomplicate things that are simple. There's like bigger problems that are hovering, and there's a lot of work and trial and error and conversations that happen. But at least for me, I know I run into that a lot of the times in managing and scheduling and coordinating, that so many things that to me at least seem very simple just get overcomplicated all the time.
I think people tend to overcomplicate it, not all the time, but most of the time because they want to try to over-explain it to make them look smarter.
Right.
At the end of the day, the problem, you're 100% right, can be simplified to its most basic issue.
Right.
And once you get down to that issue, solving it is easy.
Right.
And then communicating what the solution is, that's easy. But really
Right.
breaking it down, I think, takes time, it takes patience, and it takes sometimes you not talking.
Right.
You need to listen. And you need to be like, okay, I got it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe talk a little bit more, it sounds like you're still getting into it, but the Scott Galloway guy,
Oh, yeah.
What you've been reading about or listening about as far as, what he's talking about, things you might have learned and are applicable to stuff we talk about.
Oh, it's 100% spot on to what we've been talking about. Yeah, I've seen him a lot on like different documentaries and appearing on podcasts, and I never really like knew who he was, knew what his story was, and so I was like, screw it. I'm in my car for an hour each day, dropping my son off at daycare. Again, I'm going to utilize this time instead of listening to a fantasy football podcast.
Right.
I want to so, but the one thing and I know we got to go because Mike wants to hop on, but I think the one thing that most recently that I've picked up on in one of his chapters was, and we talked about this in a podcast, is, finding your passion. Like he talked about that.
Okay.
And he said,
Did he agree that it was bullshit?
100%. And he said, the people who usually tell you to find your passion are the ones who are already rich.
Right.
And most of the time, their passion or how they made their money wasn't their passion.
Right.
And he really, again, he simplified it. He
Right.
said, you know what you should find in your dream job is, what are you talented at?
Right.
And then master that talent.
Right.
Master that talent. Don't master your passion because you'll end up hating it. You'll end up obsessing about it,
Right.
not making any money on it.
Right.
Find something that you're good at and then try to be the best at doing that.
Right.
Like, do I love accounting and cash flow and managing? Kind of. Would I rather be in a sauna and cold plunge and running? 100%.
Right.
But I know I'll grow to hate it.
Right. Right.
But if I can master accounting, if I can master cash flow and managing customers' expectations and selling, that's a good job.
Right.
That's a talent.
Right.
On the rarest of chance. I mean, and he talked about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs' passion wasn't technology.
Right.
His passion was design, I think a little Buddhism, yoga.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to apply some of my passion
Right.
to a field where I know I can make just fucking bank.
Yeah.
And you can see that in Apple.
Right.
He has the design. It's simple,
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at in the book.
Nice.
So I got a long way to go. But
I'm going to check it out too, and then we can talk about it, compare notes.
Maybe we could have him on.
Yeah, that would be great.
He calls himself a serial entrepreneur. So,
Okay. Right.
No, I encourage you. He's on Spotify, YouTube. His books are on Spotify. So,
Right.
Drop the fantasy football podcast or movie history podcast every now and then and learn about finances and saving and entrepreneurship.
Right.
So it's a good thing to mix in every now and then.
For sure. I'll check it out. Listeners, check it out, and we'll just keep learning. So.
And he says too, like, you're young.
Right.
This is the time.
Right.
Don't waste this opportunity.
Right.
And I need to be mindful of that.
Right. Same.
For sure. I think a lot of times, at least for me, like we have a pretty good job here and, person in our life. And Mike, not a lot of CEOs and bosses,
Right.
are going to teach you this kind of stuff. So it's kind of like,
Right.
being more appreciative of that,
Right.
mindful of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, check him out, Scott Galloway.
For sure. Nice. Okay. It sounds like a pod.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Thanks, Brook.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to the Small Business Confidential. To support, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Also add our podcast to your favorite streaming services. Everything is appreciated, and we'll be back soon with another episode and upload schedule. The person voicing the intro's name is Travis Riley. Thank you, Travis. And the music was done by our engineer, me, Amari.